Well, I'm in Kenya because Kenya is a country, and I'm here for a project which will take me to every single country there is in the world in a single unbroken journey, completely without the use of flight.
Is this your first time in Kenya?
Well, sort of. I was here 10 years ago. So I just touched base. I was here for a couple of days 10 years ago. And I have these pictures in my head about what Nairobi was supposed to look like, but I've not been able to find any of it.
There's been a lot of change in the decade you've been away,
you're
right?
Crazy, yeah, a lot.
What do you like about Kenya so far?
I like that Kenyans generally are alert. I've been to a lot of countries, and here in Kenya, it's not everyone. People are different, but for the most part, I find that people are well informed, they're well educated, they speak about topics that take interest globally and locally. People are opinionated. This is good and bad, but it seems that a lot of people are opinionated based on facts. And I've been to a lot of countries where people barely know who's living around the corner. So I really think this is a driving point for Kenyans.
Have you been able to pick Swahili words? I heard you say Mzungu earlier, but I think that's a word every Mzungu knows.
That's what everyone is shouting at me.
Have you picked any Swahili words so far? Can you ask for directions, for instance?
No, I cannot. I can say small polite things, as mambo poa, and as sawe sawe.
Asante.
Asante. I know the words from the Lion King and these things.
But are you surprised by the way Kenya looks? From the way the media maybe in the West portrays Kenya and Africa in general?
No, I'm not. Maybe if I started with coming to Kenya, I would be surprised. But I've been in Africa since April last year, and I've been to 45 countries in Africa now. And I always knew that Kenya would be a front runner, being one of the stronger economies on the continent and one of the leading nations in terms of music and culture. And so I'm not very surprised. Yeah, I would say if I arrived directly to Kenya, I'd probably be surprised. Because
how do you like our food?
The food?
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is when I travel, then people say, what have you been eating? What have you been this? And then I go out and then people, they eat hamburgers and pizzas and so on. And they expect me to eat a lizard or something. I'm on a very low budget, which means that I eat local food. I eat whatever's available. And what do you call it here? You call it ugali.
Ugali, yes.
Because further down south, they call it pap and they call it mshima and so on. But, I eat a lot of that, and fish, absolutely. Tilapia is an amazing fish, which I started eating, I think, already in Uganda. They also have it there, yeah.
So before we get to the project, something very special has happened while you were in Kenya.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
You want to tell us about that?
Yes, absolutely.
Tell us what happened.
So I have a very special woman in my life, and she has tolerated that I'm away from home for now more than 3 years and trying to complete this project. And she's been out to visit me 10 times. And the 10th time was when she came here to Kenya. So she was here in Kenya 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I wanted to surprise her grandly in the best way possible. So I made arrangements with the Boma, which is a lovely luxury hotel. And they let us stay there. They sponsored us to stay there. So when she came, I brought her from the airport to the Boma, and she was already very happy. Then my second surprise was that we were going trekking. And I told her we were going trekking, but I didn't tell her in detail. So we got in a car and we went out to Mount Kenya National Park. And then when we reached the gates of the park, I told her we were going to the top of Mount Kenya.
Okay. So she's a mountain climber.
No.
Okay.
Well, she is now.
She is now.
And then she's a trooper, and she's very fit, and she runs marathons when she can get away with it and so on. So I knew she could do it. And we started walking up, and we got up to Lenana Point, and it was early in the morning, and I got down on one knee, and I presented her with a ring and a question. And she said yes and started crying, and we took a picture.
I would cry.
And then she was dancing all the way down afterwards. So I proposed to her on top of Mount Kenya.
I can imagine the view.
Well, no, because there was no view. It was a very cloudy day with a lot of snow and a lot of wind, and we were just looking forward to getting down. It was very harsh conditions to be up there.
Your story got around social media, and there was quite a lot of reaction, right?
Absolutely, yes. I think it has reached more than 100,000 people in Kenya already.
And a lady asked where to find men like you.
Yes.
I'd want to know too.
Well, I replied to the lady she should go to the top of mountains, and she said she was unlikely to find any men.
Well, we are happy for you.
Thank you very much.
And we wish you all the best.
That's Sante Sana.
Let's come to the project, Once Upon a Saga.
Yeah.
Tell us about this project and what it's all about, and especially the trip around 121 countries.
Yeah. So 121 countries is a bit more than halfway with this project. This entire project is calculated for 203 countries. So I have 82 more countries to go, and I expect that that will be completed in about 2.5 years from now. So when I was 34 years old, I was in Denmark, and I started this journey on the 10th of October, 2013. And then I went to the first country and to the next country and the third country and continued going. And here we are at 121 countries, 3 years and 2 months later. So I'm almost 38 now. I expect to be back home when I'm about 40. So why would someone do this kind of madness?
Absolutely. Why?
Why? And I ask myself this question once in a while. No, this is a very important project for many different reasons. It's a project that inspires people for various reasons. The daily struggle in sometimes relationships or looking for a job or finishing an education or just coping with life. People, they look at this project and they say, here you have someone who is not willing to quit for anything. This is a person that keeps going. This is a person who struggles with culture and sometimes disease and corruption and many different problems around the world, but always finds a solution and keeps going for it. And it's not like I find these solutions on my own. It's because I get help from people constantly. I meet a lot of nice people. People support me. But we keep on keeping on. So that's a very important element.
Why without boarding a flight? Is it a fear of flying, perhaps?
No, not. I have a profession within shipping, logistics, and transportation. And in my daily life prior to this project, I was working in different countries around the world. So I commonly fly. I worked 2 years in Libya, I worked a year in Bangladesh, I worked in Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, the Arctic Circle, and so on and so forth. So I've seen a bit of the world. This was an idea that came up when we discovered that no one in history has ever gone to every country in the world without flying. And you can question what is actually possible to do on this planet which has not been done before.
Can you reinvent the wheel?
You can try.
You can try.
You can try. So, here it is, something that no one has done before. And I felt like I was able to take up this challenge. I felt that maybe I'm the kind of person who could complete something like this. And if I had known what this project was before I took off from home, then I might have stayed at home. Because this is a lot harder than what I could ever have dreamt of. But here I am, and we're more than halfway, and we're hoping to complete this project around 2019.
You said you don't fly
during
this project.
Yeah.
So what kind of transportation do you use?
Well, I'm with the public transportation. When I cross the oceans, I'm sometimes with container ships. You can debate if that's really public transportation, but it's certainly not flying. I'm with fishing boats, and I'm shrimp trawlers and banana boats and anything that floats, basically. When I'm on land, I'm with the bodabodas or the matatus, or I go with the train or anything, basically, which is low cost and gets me where I need to go.
But this must take you long, especially by sea.
Yeah, it does. So I've been away from home for 3 years, and 2 months now.
And you're not going back home till 2019.
Yeah, exactly. So there are 3 cardinal rules for this project. One is that I cannot fly at any point. If I fly for any reason whatsoever, if I need to get evacuated or if I get sick and they transfer me to another hospital and they put me in an airplane, the project is over. Absolutely no flying. Then another rule is I cannot go back home until I reach the last country in the world. So this is like a voluntary exile from my country, which I sort of regret because I really miss my country and I miss my friends and I miss my culture and I miss being Danish and speaking to my friends and knowing everything. Well, you don't really get a huge culture shock when you go from Uganda to Kenya. Yeah?
Right.
You see a big difference in the level of development, but the culture shock isn't there because it's the same food and, it's Kiswahili in both countries and there's sort of, people laugh about the same things and the weather doesn't change much and so on.
Right.
And as I said, I traveled a lot prior to this project because of my work. I've seen a lot of the world. So I'm rarely surprised in terms of culture. And I think, I also sort of slide into it. If you fly and you suddenly find yourself in the airport and you go from the airport to your hotel or your friend's place, then you might get the culture shock. But here, I go across a country.
Right.
I gradually see it change, and I come to the border, and people are no different from one side of the border to the other. There's the same plants, the same animals, the same food, the same people. Yeah?
Do you talk to people back at home and tell them, this country is a lot different than maybe you would expect? Because people think in Nigeria it's Boko Haram, in Kenya it's alshabaab.
Yeah. Well, there's the social media for this project,
Right.
which is followed by around 25,000 people now. So there's a big audience there that are listening to whatever I post, and I try to do it as respectfully as I can. I don't want to post things on social media that do not represent where I am. And I want everything to be as positive as possible. I have Kenyans talking to me and saying, how did you dare go to Nigeria? And I tell the Kenyans, going to Nigeria in terms of Boko Haram is no different than coming to Kenya in terms of alshabaab. Alshabaab is not everywhere and hunting you and breathing you down your back. You need to go where they are. If you're in Kenya, you need to go up to the border, and then you might be at risk. But because you're going on a safari or meeting family, you're going to work or going to school, there's no real risk. And it's the same in Nigeria. Boko Haram is up in the northeastern corner. The rest of the population is just getting stuck in traffic and, updating Facebook and whatever we do.
What do you do when you get to a country? What's the purpose of the mission? For instance, when you come to Kenya, do you hold talks? Do you talk to people?
I do, yeah. Yeah, so I do many, many different things, and it many times depends on where I am in the world and what kind of options there are. But first and foremost, I'm traveling as a goodwill ambassador of the Red Cross. So I represent the Red Cross globally. I visit with the Red Cross. The Red Cross exists in 190 countries around the world, which is just phenomenal. That's basically every country in the world. So here I meet with the Kenyan Red Cross National Society, and I try to learn about their activities and the way they function. And I must say, and it's not just because I'm in Kenya, but Kenya Red Cross National Society is extraordinary. It's truly an anomaly around the world. The work that they're doing and the capability of the Kenya Red Cross is extraordinary, and that is something to support in any way possible. So that's the Red Cross part. I get invited to do talks. Sometimes I seek it. Sometimes I contact a university and tell them I'm there, and then they can invite me to come and do a talk. Maersk Line is a world's largest container shipping line. They commonly invite me to come to their office and entertain. So I go and spend 20 minutes or 30 minutes or sometimes 90 minutes depending on what they want, and then tell a story and let them ask questions, and then sometimes we go out for dinner afterwards.
So is this Once Upon a Saga, the project?
Yeah.
Is it part of the Red Cross, or does it exist independently?
It's difficult to say at this point, I think. An easy way to explain the project is that the project is really 3 projects. So the overall title would be Once Upon a Saga.
Okay.
That's the name of the foremost project. But then if you divide that into 3 minor projects, then you would say that one project would be the Red Cross and promoting the Red Cross positively. One project would be simply getting to every country in the world without flying, which is a lot of logistics and meals and tickets and vaccinations and visas and this and that. So that's a project in itself. And the third part of it would be promoting the world in a positive sense, letting people know that it's true what you find in the newspaper, that there is all these horrible things, but that these horrible things generally do not represent the world we live in. There's a mismatch between what we hear about the world and what the world is actually like, because there's so much focus on all the negativity. But when you go out and you see the world and you see that most people are just ordinary people that take care of their children, they fall in love, they complain about the weather, they discuss politics, and they try to carve out a small part of the world for themselves where they can have some safety and security and a quiet life. Most people do not have any ambitions of becoming a terrorist. Most people do not have Ebola. The world is not like that.
Let's talk about the logistics and 2 things.
Sure.
First, the vaccinations. How many vaccinations have you had?
Oh, I have
How many
no
vaccinations
idea.
can a human body take?
I don't know. I don't think I've reached my limit because I'm still sitting here.
Yeah, and you're healthy to me.
I have more than 20 for sure. I don't know how many I have.
What about the visas? Moving from country to country, especially
That is
without
tricky.
It's tricky. It's got to be.
If you're Kenyan, you cannot understand why would it be difficult to go to Ethiopia, because all you need is your passport and you go to the border and you go and say hello. But if you come from Denmark, then they will require that you have residency in Kenya. And then in some countries you can go about it. You can find a way to become a resident quickly, or you can do something. But in Kenya, which is a more structured country in many senses, then I would need to pay around $5,000 for residency. I would need to have a job in Kenya, and the process would take me maybe 2 or 3 or 4 months. So it's not just something you do. And I cannot go around Ethiopia and try to reach it from the north. Because if I go west, I would have to go through South Sudan, overland, which is a life-threatening situation probably. And if I go east, I would have to go overland through Somalia, which is basically 100% risk of getting kidnapped, especially when you look like me. So, I had to do something. But luckily, I was able to get some help from the Danish embassy, and then there was some support from the Red Cross in Ethiopia, and there was some support from Ethiopian ambassador. And eventually, I got my paperwork, and I received my visa for Ethiopia yesterday.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Asante.
I wanted to come to that. The fact that you work with the Red Cross and you're the Danish Red Cross Goodwill Ambassador, doesn't that open doors? Because the Red Cross is pretty much borderless. Can't you just go to Ethiopia as part of the Red Cross?
The Red Cross is neutral. But what I'm doing is not as such perceived to be a humanitarian mission. What I do has promotional value for the Red Cross globally. And it combines the Red Cross within one project that we can demonstrate that we're one family and we're all linked together. We have around 17 million volunteers on this planet, which is extraordinary. And these 17 million volunteers, they reach around 150 million people on an every day-to-day basis. So there's a lot of value in me promoting that and telling people about the Red Cross and telling people about what does the Red Cross do. So people don't just think that it's blood drives, or they don't just think that it's first aid, but they also understand that it's empowering women, or it's rebuilding societies, or it's fighting diseases, or it's responding to disasters. Or, you have, here in Kenya, you have Africa's second largest privatized ambulance service. The Red Cross drives some of the finest ambulances on this continent. So there's a lot of value in that. But when it comes to doing paperwork, they will say, well, you're not a diplomat per se, you have an ordinary passport. And the Red Cross will try to link me up. But in the end, immigration makes the decision. And if immigration does not see the importance of a man traveling to every country in the world without flying, and they often do not see the importance in that, then I'm just an ordinary guy, and I need to deal with it in the most ordinary way.
So how many days or how long do you intend to stay in Ethiopia?
Well, that's a good question. So with around 200 countries in the world, if I wanted to spend 7 days in each country, a week in each country, then it would take 4 years before I came back home. If I wanted to spend 1 month in every country in the world, then it would take 16 years before I came back home. And mind you, I've been in Kenya now close to a month. Yeah, so if this was my average, then I would come home when I was 50 years old, or older, or never. So I'm always trying to push as hard as I can to get the things done. Take a picture of the sunset. This is something I do in every country. I take a picture of somebody's eyes in every country. The idea is that at the end of the project, we'll have the eyes of the world. You'll have the eyes of Kenya, the eyes of Denmark, the eyes of Finland, the eyes of the USA, and so on. And you can do one big collage with all the eyes of the world. So I do a number of things, but then also I need to get to the next country. Need to get to the next country and so on. I spend time on ships between countries, and that's just time that's sort of lost.
Does that count when you're between countries? Does that count like you've been to 2 countries already?
No, unfortunately not. That would be clever though.
It would be very clever.
Yeah, so who knows? Maybe I'm going to Ethiopia twice, because I'll be going through Ethiopia to reach Djibouti and Somalia, and then I come through Ethiopia to get to Sudan, and then from Sudan I can get to Eritrea, and then I need to go back to Sudan again, and then I'll get to Egypt and Libya and then Tunisia and Algeria, and then I'm done with Africa and off to the Middle East. So, to answer your question, maybe 10 days in Ethiopia before.
So when the time comes to go to Syria, you would go?
Absolutely. Even today, if I wanted to go exactly today, there are safe places I can go in Syria. When you have these conflicts in countries, you rarely have... So think about Kenya and alshabaab. It's not like alshabaab is controlling the entire country.
No.
Most of the country is safe to travel in, and there are some regions where you have to be aware. So when you have conflicts like in Syria, it's sort of the same situation. You have large regions that are safe where you can go, and you go to an internet cafe and update your Facebook account, and you go and have a cup of coffee, and you meet people, and you play football with children in the street, and you go to the supermarket to see what kind of groceries they have and stuff like that. But then there are some areas where you would absolutely not go. South Sudan is completely different in that aspect. It's especially the borders in South Sudan that are very dangerous. And in South Sudan, there are more than 7 rebel groups that are fighting and combating government. And I think government is even split in a little bit. So it's a very, very difficult country to visit. But most countries around the world, and especially Syria, there are large safe zones where you can go and spend some time and learn and then leave again.
Thor, do you ever fear for your life? Does your family fear for your life?
Well, if my family fears, then they don't tell me. But also, I don't tell my family everything. Yeah, I fear for my life sometimes. But it's more so in traffic, to be honest. It's not because someone comes with a gun or a knife, because I never experienced that, ever. But, I'm on the back of a boda that's going 70 or 80 kilometers, and you feel that the driver's maybe tired, or maybe he's not super experienced. And you're wondering how good is the helmet you're wearing, and so sometimes I fear for my life in those situations. I was on a boda in somewhere in Central Africa for 3 hours on a dirt road, and it started raining. And when it started raining, my heartbeat started racing. I was like, I'm going to crash somewhere in the jungle. No one's going to find me. There's never going to be an ambulance here. But we were fine.
Is there a country you can pick and say, I've had the best experience here?
Well, it was quite special that I proposed here. And I think that will stay with me forever. Like Kenya is a country I will never forget just because of that. And, the country might even just get better and better and better as I tell the stories over time. Yeah, there are many great countries in the world. I've truly had many great experiences. There's a lot of hard work that goes into a project like this. There's a lot of transportation, a lot of bureaucracy. There's a lot of sitting in dusty offices and talking to angry men about why you want a visa and so on.
Who don't even see the need to travel through 121 countries.
No, but sometimes I get punished for being Mzungu. They look at me and they say, we have history in our country. We remember what happened. We remember when the ships came.
Yeah, and it's payback time.
Oh, yeah. Or, sometimes it goes in another direction where a guy says, my sister wanted to go to Europe, but she was denied the Schengen visa. So if my sister cannot go, you cannot come inside my country. And you go like, what are we talking about here? But then there's nothing you can do. Yeah. Like, this guy's just angry for you for no really good reason.
Have you wanted to go to a country and were not able to because of the bureaucracy we're talking about?
Yeah.
What happens to the project?
Well, no, you find a way. Yeah, there's always a way. Mm-hmm. With this project, you often find that you need to be... Imagine you're in a room around a table with 20 people. And these people are all telling you it's impossible. Everyone has tried before, it cannot be done, it's a failure, don't even experiment, just go home. That's the situation that I often find myself in. Because a lot of places, people are not used to thinking out of the box. People are used to doing things in the exact same way that they always do things. They did it last week, they did it last year, their parents did it like this, and so on and so on. So, then you need to be the one person around that table that comes up with an idea that can get you through where you need to go. And there's a lot of pressure on that, obviously. So I spent about 4 months trying to get into Equatorial Guinea. And in the beginning I was joking and I was updating Facebook and I was saying, don't worry, there are a lot of letters in the alphabet. We go plan A, plan B, plan C, and so on. But I reached through the entire alphabet at some point and I was getting desperate. But it took me 4 months. It took me 3 months to get the visa. I had to go to different countries, obviously without flying, and to different embassies and different consulates. And on my 5th try, I eventually got a visa. And then it took me 26 days to cross the border.
What's been your lowest moment?
When I gave up. I gave up in Central Africa. I was under immense pressure for several months. I had cerebral malaria. And for those that know the difference between the different types of malaria, that's a very, very hard type of malaria to have. I started getting migraines. My girlfriend and we almost split back then. That's a couple of years ago. I was so focused on the project and I lost a financial sponsor for the project. I lost a lot of support from people I was counting on. I experienced a lot of racism and hate. I didn't know enough French to deal with the situations that I was getting into in Central Africa, but I was learning fast. I learned a lot of French in that period. So I was there for about 7 months, and I was turned away brutally at a border for the 3rd time. And then I was counting on someone I could call, and I made the call, and this person just put me in the ground. And on that day, I just gave up. I decided that I was in so much pain that I certainly wasn't doing this for me. I didn't feel that at that moment there was a lot of support within the Red Cross in the region. So I didn't feel like I was really doing it for the Red Cross. I didn't see the social media growing at a rate where I was happy with it. So I didn't feel that people were really interested in what I was doing. So I didn't feel I was doing it for them. So I was asking myself, who am I doing this for? Why am I suffering so much? And I gave up and wanted to go to the airport. But as it is with this project, even in my darkest moments, someone reaches out from the darkness. And, it might just be a pat on your back, or it might be a meal, or it might be an invitation, or it might be a telephone number, or it might be a message or a smile. And someone that day got me back up on my feet, and I continued going, and I continued fighting for about 3 more months, and eventually popped out of Central Africa and got into Southern Africa, and everything got easy.
That's a lot you just said, and it made me realize how we take so much for granted. Like you said, a meal, a smile. It could be the difference between giving up and hanging on.
That is very true. It's absolutely true. What I say is that day that we're talking about there was probably the worst day for me on this entire project. I was completely broken and torn. And 26 days later, I came out of Equatorial Guinea with a big, big smile on my face and a scratch on my cheek from a monkey, a chimpanzee. And I was so happy and so proud to have achieved that. And what I try to explain to people is the difference between me being at my absolute low point and dancing on the clouds was 26 days. So you might be struggling with something today, and that might not be solved tomorrow. But give it some time, because you cannot judge your day, or you cannot judge your entire life on today. You might have been out looking for work for 2 years and everyone's put you in the ground. But you might apply somewhere tomorrow and get a job, It's when you quit that you lose. If you keep fighting at it, you will break through the wall at some point.
Just before I let you go, we're getting into the festive season.
Oh, we are. You Kenyans are crazy. Yes. Saving money all year and then blowing it all in December.
Right. Come January, we have tales to tell. But this is a time when people spend time with family and friends. And for the last number of years, you've not had that.
That's right.
Yeah. How do you cope through the festive season? Because I would miss home the most during Christmas.
It can be rough. Yeah. Last year at Christmas, I was on a boat between Sao Tome and Cameroon. Mm-hmm. And we got stuck because immigration was closing down for Christmas. So we were just on this ship. And then I was with the crew, and they played music, and we cooked a special meal, and I think there was some alcohol on the table as well. And, so it just became this big festive event. And the year before that, there was something special. And every year, someone reaches out and says, "No, you're not going to be alone for Christmas. Come and join my family, or come and do this, or come and do that." I don't really know where I'm going to be this year, because if I get my visa for Sudan, let's say in 10 days. Then I will cross the border in 10 days. Mm-hmm. Then I'll be in Ethiopia. But then I might push to go to Djibouti or Somalia. So it'll be one of those 3 countries. And who knows how people spend Christmas there.
What do you miss most about home?
Milk. There's this funny thing about milk. I spoke to a lot of people. You grow up somewhere in the world and they give you milk. And that becomes what milk is supposed to taste like. And you can travel around the world and you can find very fine milk. But it doesn't taste like the milk where you come from. And I miss milk that tastes like milk where I come from.
And what's going to be the first thing you probably will do when you get back home? Throw a party?
I'll give my fiancé a huge hug. And then I'll go to bed and sleep for a month.
As we wrap up, this is a question we ask our guests.
Okay.
What motivates you to get up every morning? And how do you face the day-to-day challenges of life?
I'll go backwards on that one. I'll start by saying how I face the challenges of life. I faced them head on. I faced them with a lot of optimism. I faced them with a lot of determinism. I faced them with a lot of stamina. I faced it with a lot of friends. I get a massive amount of support. The motto of this project is, "A stranger is a friend you've never met before." Mm-hmm. And this is something I prove to myself and prove to others over and over again. So that's how I face life. Why I still get out of bed, that's a question I don't know if I can answer. I don't think there are many people on the planet who would be able to complete a project like this. Most people wouldn't want to do it anyway. Mm. But if you had to find a candidate who could do something like this, you would need different traits in life. You would need social intelligence so that you're not too awkward when you meet with people and you can easily relate to people. And a lot of people have that. You would need a certain sort of intelligence for solving a certain type of problems, because you run into problems constantly. It might be language or culture or bureaucracy or something else. How do you get on this boat? How do you get on board a container ship? That you can give a talk on that alone, because that's difficult. So a lot of people might have that, and a lot of people might have those 2 aspects. Then you need stamina beyond compare. You need to get out of the bed every morning, even when you don't want to, when you can't take it anymore, when it's raining, when everything's against you. You need to get out. because if you don't do that, you would never complete a project like this. And to have all three of those components might be very, very rare. But to have one or two of them, I think a lot of people can put up their hand in the air. So perhaps I just get out of bed out of sheer determination.
Thank you so much, Thor, for speaking with us.
Thank you for having me.
For allowing us to get a glimpse of what your life has been in the last few years. I cannot even attempt to do half of what you do. And I think it's pretty amazing that there are still people like you in the world.
Well, thank you. I really enjoyed being here today. It was kind of you, Julia. Asante sana.